release of Jordan Peele's newest box office smash hit, I thought now is a perfect time to watch and rank all of his movies. I'm watching 7 movies today, and you may be thinking to yourself, but he's only done 3 movies, which is true, that's facts. I'm also counting 4 movies that he's produced, because why not? With that being said, the 7 movies that are on the agenda for today are Get Out, BlacKkKlansman, Us, Candyman, Nope, Monkey Man, and Him. Before I started preparing for this video, the only 2 that I've seen were Candyman and Monkey Man. So I guess I just like looking at men. On another note, this whole video will be full of spoilers, so if you're planning to watch these movies for yourself and want to avoid spoilers, this is your spoiler alert. Anyway, let's watch Get Out. This was his directorial debut, and it was actually very successful, earning $33 million opening weekend. Get this, since its release in 2017, has grossed over $255 million worldwide. The budget for this film was $4.5 million. It's made 50 times more than that original budget. Oh my god, right? This film stars Daniel Kaluuya, Allison Williams, Lakeith Stanfield, Catherine Keener, Bradley Whitford, and Lil Rel Howery. Let's get on to the plot. We open with a black man, and yes, his race does matter. I'm not just mentioning it for fun. He's just walking on the sidewalk, alone, at night, and he unfortunately gets shoved into the trunk of a car. Not good. Cut to present day, we meet Chris, a black man, and his partner Rose, a white woman, and he is going to meet her parents for the first time, which is, I guess, a big step in the relationship. I don't know, I wouldn't know. Chris is obviously nervous about this, and he brings this up to both Rose and his best friend Rod. On their way to Rose's parents' house, they hit a deer and absolutely obliterate their side mirror. When the cop arrives, he asks for Chris's license, even though Rose was the one driving. This is the first little hint of racism we get in this movie, well, other than the black guy getting kidnapped 2.5 minutes in, but that's besides the point. Chris was willing and able to hand over his ID to the cop, but Rose was not having it. She was basically calling out this cop, saying, like, you're a lousy, no good, racist cop who's profiling a black guy for no reason, which, fair enough, he absolutely was doing that, but, like, he's a white male cop in the middle of upstate New York. What else is he gonna do? Help out? No. But here's the thing. This is where I immediately became suspicious of Rose, because she was really playing the part of trying not to be racist. And I don't want to play devil's advocate, or I don't think I used that phrase correctly. I don't want to side with the bad guy, but wouldn't it be necessary for the cop to get the information of both people involved in the accident to make a proper report? I don't know. I'm not a cop, so I have no idea. I mean, he definitely could have asked in a way that wasn't a microaggression, but again, he's just a cop. What more do you want from him? Speaking of microaggressions, let's meet Rose's parents, Dean, a neurosurgeon, and Missy, a therapist. While on a tour of the house, Chris catches a glimpse of both the groundskeeper and the maid, who are both black. Again, that is important, and you'll find out why later. He's very uncomfortable with this rich white family having only black workers, and Dean, noticing Chris's unease, basically says something along the lines of, and keep in mind, this is not word for word, but he pretty much basically said, like, oh, it's okay that we have only black workers because at least we pay them now and they like being here, so it's fine. And I would have voted for Obama a 3rd time, which actually that last part was a real line in the movie.
I would have voted for Obama for a 3rd term if I could.
It's now dinner time and we're introduced to Rose's brother, Jeremy. Just, getting to know Chris, asking all the important questions, telling embarrassing stories about Rose, and then he just straight up tries to fight Chris after a very quick conversation about judo and jujitsu. Now it's escalated from microaggressions to actually just being aggressive. How fun! In the middle of the night, Chris goes out for a smoke or to get a breath of fresh air, which I know is an oxymoron, but whatever. As he's standing there, he notices Walter, the groundskeeper, beelining it towards him. Like, this man was full sprinting at Chris. 100-meter dash, here he comes. Move over, Usain, because Walter's going to take that record right from you. But right before Walter would make impact with Chris, he takes a hard turn and just doesn't hit him. Taken up by this insanely fast gardener, Chris goes back in where he finds Missy in her office. She invites him in to try to hypnotize him to get him to stop smoking. Okay, weird, a little bit weird. Chris doesn't want that to happen, but Missy keeps pushing and asking questions about the night his mother died. And reluctantly, he answers. This puts him into a trance. His body's paralyzed, but he's sinking further and further into what Missy calls the sunken place. He then wakes up in bed next to Rose, thinking it was just a dream, or I guess a nightmare. But he realizes it was real after he doesn't need to smoke anymore. As dozens of rich white folks show up to the house for their yearly get-together or reunion of sorts, Chris becomes more and more uncomfortable with the fact that, one, he's never met any of these people, and two, they keep saying weird things and touching him.
Okay.
Oh, not bad.
As he's meeting all these new people, he gets talking to a man named Jim Hudson, who is a blind art dealer, who apparently likes Chris's photography. Don't know how you can see it, but he likes it.
Believe me, the irony of being a blind art dealer isn't lost on me.
He tells Chris that he has a good eye. Okay. Chris then sees another black man. Relieved, he goes to introduce himself, and we find out this man's name is Logan. Just like Walter and Georgina, Logan is in a trance-like state, almost as if he's been hypnotized, you could say. Weirded out by this entire situation, Chris goes back upstairs to give his old pal Rod a call. They talk about how strange everyone's acting and how uncomfortable it is. And Chris then decides to get a picture of Logan to send to Rod, because Rod might be able to piece some things together. Chris successfully snaps the pic. Well, I say successfully in the sense that he did get a picture, but the flash on his phone went off, sending Logan into a fury, jumping at him and choking him out for a few seconds. But they both end up being fine, and Dean tells the group that Logan just has photosensitive epilepsy, obviously, and the flash triggered a seizure. Hey, I've never seen anyone have a seizure, but I'm pretty sure they don't look like that. Chris sends the photo of Logan to Rod, who finds an article about a Brooklyn man named Andre, who's been missing for 6 months. And we actually have already very briefly met Andre. Let me just jog your memory real quick. That's the same dude. Chris then pulls Rose away from the party and tells her he wants to leave, which is, a good idea. At the same time, in the garden, Dean is holding an auction of sorts for Chris. And I know how that looks, and it's honestly not much better than that. While frantically packing up his belongings to get out, name drop, Chris finds a box full of pictures that contain Rose and her previous partners, including Walter and Georgina. Uh-oh! That's not good, at least not for Chris. Now in a panic, Chris runs down the stairs while repeatedly telling Rose to give her the car keys, but she can't find them. That's a pretty tiny bag. You can find those keys pretty quickly, I'd say. Jeremy is already blocking the door, though, by the time Chris reaches the bottom of the stairs, meaning he's now stuck in this house. There's a little bit of a fight while Chris is attempting to leave, but ultimately Missy ends up re-hypnotizing him, which sends him back into the sunken place, unable to move. Then the family drags him to the basement and ties him to a chair. When he wakes up, he is shown a presentation of Rose's grandfather, who explains that the family transplants the brains of old white people into the bodies of young black people. But the host of the original body, so Chris in this case, or Andre and Logan, are stuck in this sunken place. So they are aware of what's happening, but are unable to do anything about it, which would suck. That's like sleep paralysis, which is like the worst thing ever. This is where he also finds out that the brain of Jim Hudson, the blind art dealer from earlier, will be transplanted into his body.
I want your eye, man.
Back in the city, Rod is at the police station trying to report Chris is missing because he hasn't heard from him in a while and it's making him nervous. The cops, being cops, don't believe him and laugh directly in his face, telling him Chris is most likely fine. Doesn't look fine to me. It's finally time for the surgery, and Jeremy goes to collect Chris. As Jeremy turns around to prepare an IV bag, Chris bonks him over the head with some kind of ball, knocking him out. You may be wondering how Chris is even awake at this point, because last time we saw him, he was put back into the trance. Well, bro stuffed the cotton from the inside of the chair into his ear, so when the sound of the spoon hitting the teacup played, he couldn't hear it, so he didn't fall back into the trance, actually. He was just pretending. It's pretty cool, I guess. He then goes to the operating room where he spears Dean in the jugular with deer antlers. Pretty cool. As Dean is falling, bleeding to death, he knocks over a candle, which lights the house on fire, but it is a very slow burn. It doesn't immediately go up into flames, right? It just kind of catches the fabric on fire, and then very slowly the house does burn. Chris then walks up the stairs as slowly as possible. You'd think he'd have a little bit of pep in his step. No. He has absolutely no urgency for some reason. He runs into Missy, who is surprised that he's not getting his brains taken out, and they have a little scuffle, but Chris ends up both breaking the hypnotizing teacup and killing Missy. Just as he's about to reach the door, Jeremy jumps up from behind him, but Chris is able to push him to the ground and stomp on his head a few times. Finally, he gets out of the house after stealing the keys to Jeremy's Porsche. While driving away, he hit Georgina, and feeling guilty that he wasn't able to save his own mom from the same fate of a hit and run, he picks her up and puts her in the car, which is like the worst decision he could have made because she's not actually Georgina. She's Rose's grandmother in Georgina's body. Obviously, Georgina's gonna fight back and try to kill him, which is exactly what happens. She fights back, but Chris ends up like crashing into a tree, which kills Georgina. But the car is totaled and he can't escape anymore. Rose and Walter rush to Chris to kill him, but quick thinking saves him when he uses the flashlight on his phone to very briefly snap Walter out of the trance and shoot Rose instead of Chris. And then Walter, himself. This is one thing that I will explain. When Chris flashes the light into Walter's eyes, it very temporarily snaps him out of the trance. The real Walt is now in control and decides to kill Rose and then end his own suffering. It also means that when Chris took the photo of Logan with the flash, the person who jumped at him, yelling at him to get out, was actually Andre warning Chris. Rose is just lying there bleeding out on the pavement, and Chris starts strangling her, but doesn't kill her because the flashing lights of a cop car pull into the driveway. So he surrenders, puts his hands up, and steps away from her body. But it's not an officer that steps out of the car, it's Rod. Save the day. We love Rod in this house. And Chris and Rod drive off into the sunset. Well, just kidding. It's the middle of the night, but they do escape together. And that's the end of the movie. This was my first time watching this movie, and I do think it lives up to the hype. It's definitely one of those movies I used to watch more than once to get the full picture and find the hidden meaning, all the little Easter eggs, Which I think I'd probably watch it again. Overall, though, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. This movie isn't directed by Jordan Peele, it's directed by Spike Lee, but it's produced by Jordan Peele, so it counts for today. This movie was released in 2018, and I will tell you right now, I don't recognize most of the cast. There's only 4 people that really stand out to me. John David Washington, who plays Ron Stallworth, Adam Driver, who plays Flip Zimmerman, and in the movie he also plays Ron Stallworth, but the white version of him. We have Topher Grace, who plays David Duke, the Grand Wizard of the KKK. Quick question, actually. Why do we give the worst people the coolest names? The Grand Wizard, that's sick, but then you read the rest of his title, and it's the Grand Wizard of the KKK. Not cool anymore, dude. And then the 4th person that I recognized was Corey Hawkins, who is my favorite character in my favorite musical. He plays Benny in In the Heights. And he also played Dr. Dre in Straight Outta Compton, which is pretty cool, I guess. Anyway, onto the plot. Ron Stallworth is hired onto the Colorado Springs Police Department as the first African-American officer. Just for a little bit of context, this movie takes place in the 70s, so having a black police officer was unheard of at this point. And also, fun fact about me, the only police officer I've ever talked to was a black man. Oh, how the times have changed. Ron is assigned to the records room, where he is harassed by a white officer. Surprise, surprise. He asks if he can be moved to a different department where he's able to go undercover. His first undercover job is to infiltrate a rally where a man named Kwame Ture is speaking. Police think that during his speech, he's going to tell black people to fight for their civil rights at an upcoming rally, which, hey, doesn't sound like a bad idea to me. And if you think that fighting for civil rights is wrong, you're in the wrong place, buddy. At this rally, Ron meets Patrice, the president of the African American Student Union at Colorado College. I honestly don't really like this character that much, but she's very important to the movie, so I had to introduce her somehow. Ron and Patrice agree to meet at a bar later in the evening, and when she arrives, she tells Ron that while taking Kwame Ture back to his hotel, they're pulled over by white officers who threaten Ture and sexually assault Patrice. We find out that this cop's name is Andy Landers, and yes, it is the same one that was harassing Ron when he was in the records room. Ron is then reassigned to the intelligence division, which is bigger and better than what he was doing before. And as he's reading the daily paper, he sees that the KKK is looking for new members. So he calls a number and starts talking to this man named Walter, who's the leader of the Colorado chapter of the KKK. This call surprisingly goes pretty well, or well enough for a black guy pretending to be a white guy talking to a racist guy. And yes, Ron did pretend to be white on the phone, but here's the thing. He used his full name, first and last. He picked up the phone, started the conversation with, "This is Ron Stallworth."
I just hear you use your real name. Oh, motherfucker.
The full name of a black man is known by one of the most racist groups ever. Great. He sets up an in-person meeting, and instead of him going, because that would be the worst decision he could ever make, he sends his coworker, Flip Zimmerman, who is a Jewish guy. If you know anything about the KKK, you would know that on top of hating people of color, they also hate Jewish people. Perfect. So now we have a black guy and a Jewish dude trying to join the KKK. What could go wrong? But Flip, using Ron's name, goes to the meeting. Keep in mind, Flip does have a mic on because it is an undercover investigation. So Black Ron Stallworth, is listening in from the car. Flip hits it off with most of the members, except for one guy, Felix, who is the most aggressive of the bunch. He becomes suspicious of Ron. Or Flip? I don't know. I'm going to call him Flip for the rest of the time I talk about it, because it'll get too confusing. So when I say Flip, just know that when I talk about him, he's undercover as Ron. And when I say Ron, it's the original Ron Stallworth, unless I specify otherwise. Okay? Flip talks to another one of the members who I think is drunk. This member accidentally tells Flip that there is an upcoming attack on a civil rights rally. And this is the same rally that Teray was talking about in his speech. In order to get the membership card as fast as possible, Ron calls the Klan's headquarters in, I think, Louisiana, and he speaks directly to David Duke, who again is like the leader of the KKK. Ron and David hit it off pretty well, and they end up having a few more important phone calls throughout the rest of the movie. One in which Ron asks David how he knows Ron is a white man.
Tell that you're a pure Aryan white man from the way you pronounce certain words. Take the word R. Negro pronounces it Ara.
During another one of the meetings, Felix singles Flip out, brings him to the basement of his house, holds a gun to his head, and tells him to do a polygraph test in order to find out if he's Jewish. The way that lie detector tests work is that they measure stress responses, and I'm pretty sure having a pistol being waved around in your face isn't the most common experience for most people. And I'm sure Felix is not a certified polygraph tester. So the second that red line spikes up, boom, there goes Flip. Ron is listening into this entire situation because once again, Flip is mic'd up. And not wanting his coworker to get shot in the head, Ron throws a rock through the kitchen window in order to distract from the polygraph test, which is good for Flip because he is lying. And I know that polygraphs are not the most valid thing. They don't give great results. But especially in this case, no matter how Flip answers, he's gonna die. If he answers he's not Jewish, it's gonna spike because he's lying. If he tells Felix that he is Jewish, he's gonna shoot him right on the spot. So either way, Flip's brains will be splattered across the room. Ron escapes and Flip doesn't have to take the test. So in this case, it did all work out. I feel like I should also mention, at this point, Ron and Patrice are officially dating. But Ron did tell her that he works in construction, so she doesn't know that he is a police officer, and she notoriously hates cops. What a great pair. Around this time, there's also a brief run-in with the real Ron Stallworth and Felix. When Felix shows up to Ron's apartment out of the blue, thinking he would be met by the white Ron Stallworth, who we know doesn't exist. The KKK have the full name of a black man, and now they have his address too. Luckily, Flip is able to kind of talk his way out of it when he tells Felix that he's undocumented. Or not undocumented. Knowing the Klan, they probably hate undocumented people too. He's unlisted. Like, he's off the grid, basically. His name, address, phone number are not in the phone book. It's the day of Flip's induction into the KKK, and who shows up? David Duke himself. Black Ron is assigned to be his bodyguard for the day, which is bad for two reasons. One, he's black, and two, he's the real Ron Stallworth. Flip is initiated. He's officially a member. After a quick little celebration, the plan for the attack that was mentioned earlier is in full swing. Connie, who's Felix's wife, is sent to the rally to place a bomb. But when she realizes the place is packed with police, she's told to just place the bomb at Patrice's house instead. She tries to put it in the letterbox, but obviously it doesn't fit because it's a bomb. So she sticks it under Patrice's car instead. Ron, who left the dinner already, but not before getting a picture of David Duke, is attempting to arrest Connie, but two white cops show up and start beating Ron, not knowing that he's an officer himself. As he's being beaten up, Felix and two other members show up to detonate the bomb, but they still think that it's in the mailbox. They park right next to her car, flip the switch, and boom! Felix and the two other Klan members get killed in this explosion. Hey, what's a world with few dead KKK members? A better one! Flip shows up and saves Ron by showing his ID and telling the officers that he is an officer, actually, he's just undercover. And this marks the end of their investigation. To celebrate, they go out to a bar, and while drunk, Andy Landers, the racist cop from earlier, confesses to Ron that he did in fact sexually assault Patrice, not knowing that Ron is mic'd up. So with this confession on tape, Andy Landers is finally arrested. Back at the police station, Ron, Flip, and some of the other people who were part of this investigation are congratulated, but are told never to let this information see the light of day. And they need to destroy all evidence, basically. As you're packing up, Ron receives one final call from David Duke, where Ron reveals that he is, in fact, a black man.
That nigger detective, did you ever get his name?
No.
All right, yeah, absolutely sure. Detective is Ron Stallworth.
This film ends with Ron and Patrice back at his apartment when they get a knock on the door. When they open it, though, no one's there, and through the window, they see a burning cross surrounded by Klan members. You know when you see a movie and for some reason you can't stop thinking about it? That's this movie for me. I watched it probably 2 weeks ago now, and there has not been a day go by that I haven't thought about this movie. I don't know why this is the one that is always on my mind, because it's not even my favorite out of the 7 that I watched. I do think it's a really good movie. So I'd give it like an 8 out of 10.
Creep on in.
This was Jordan Peele's second movie that he directed and produced himself, and I would say it's definitely his most interesting concept. We meet our main character as a child. Her name is Adelaide. She's on a boardwalk carnival with her parents. While her mother is in the bathroom, her dad is supposed to be watching her, but is a little bit preoccupied with whack-a-mole. Young Adelaide wanders off and finds herself in like a funhouse, like a mirror maze, where she meets her doppelganger, and this scares her, and she doesn't really like talking about it. Now in present day, with adult Adelaide, played by Lupita Nyong'o, her husband Gabe Wilson, Winston Duke, and their 2 children, Zora and Jason. They're on a family vacation in sunny Santa Cruz, California. They end up going to a beach to meet with their friends Kitty, Elizabeth Moss, Scientologist, Josh, and their twins. This is the same beach that Adelaide went missing on, and following in his mother's footsteps, Jason wanders off from the group. On his little escapade, did I use that word correctly? Probably not, knowing myself. On his walk, Jason runs into a man with his arms stretched out, drenched in blood, which is not a good scene for a 10-year-old to stumble across. But hey, I've probably seen worse on the internet when I was 10, and look at me, I turned out just fine-ish. In a panic, because she knows what it's like to be separated from her parents at this exact beach, Adelaide runs and finds Jason, and then decides that it's time to pack up and go home. Later that night, Adelaide finally opens up to Gabe about her childhood trauma and how she's worried that her doppelganger is coming to find her. Gabe, hearing this, is kind of like, well, that's stupid and weird. Don't worry. And immediately, the lights go out and Jason is like, who's that family sitting at the end of the driveway? Hey, that's terrifying. Uh-oh, that's not going to end well. So Adelaide calls 911, and in classic horror movie fashion, we have a character that makes a dumb decision. Gabe goes outside to confront the family, which obviously doesn't work. I know this family at the end of the driveway would have broken into the house eventually, but in that case, at least spend your final minutes with your wife and kids, dude. Guess what happens next? The family breaks into the house. And the first to be attacked is Gabe with a baseball bat. Then the evil family corners the good family into the living room. This is the first time that we get a close-up look of this evil family, and they look just like our family that we've been following.
It's us.
But they're holding gold scissors, and they're dressed in red jumpsuits, which is weird. I'm going to mention this now so I can talk about the characters in a less confusing way. And I can't remember if in the movie they named the doppelgangers, but in the credits they did. Adelaide's doppelganger is Red, Gabe's is Abraham, Zora's is Umbre, and Jason's is Pluto. These people in the red suits are also called the Tethered. Anyway, let's get back to the movie plot. Red tells a story about a princess and her relationship with her own shadow. We're seeing any sort of correlation here? I don't know. After this quick little story time, Red tells Abraham to, I guess, kill Gabe, sends Umbre to chase Zora, who's a track and field runner, and lets Jason and Pluto play together. They all end up escaping their doppelgangers. Adelaide is able to grab the fire poker and free herself from the table, where she finds Jason, who locked Pluto in a closet. Umbre is distracted by killing some random man, so Zora is able to run away. Gabe is able to restart the boat engine, which I think sucks Abraham into the propeller or something. I don't know. But Abraham dies in this scene. But Gabe is able to make it back to shore, where he picks up the rest of his family and makes their way to Josh and Kitty's house. When they arrive, though, they find Kitty, Josh, and the twins slain on the kitchen floor. They were killed by their tethers. One Scientologist down, few more to go. Now they realize that the doppelgangers are not just coming for their family. And after killing the shadow versions of Josh, Kitty, and the twins, they turn on the TV and see a broadcast explaining that all across America, these doppelgangers wearing red are showing up and killing their counterparts and then standing in a line holding hands like this. Creepy. They steal the keys to Josh's car because he's not going to need it anytime soon. As they start driving away, Umbre appears again. She's just kind of chilling on the car, but when they make an abrupt stop, she flies off and into a tree and dies. And that's just the physics of it all, baby. In the morning, they reach the boardwalk where they are met by Pluto, who has set fire to the family's original car. Jason realizes this is a trap and that there's a trail of gasoline leading to where his family is standing now. Jason starts backing away, which Pluto, who mimics Jason's movements, backs into the fire that he's already started. But then Red grabs Jason and runs. Adelaide chases after them because her child just got kidnapped in broad daylight in front of her own eyes. She's led back to the mirror maze that she first got lost in all those years before, which is where she first met Red. She finds her way into the underground tunnel system where she finds Red again, who explains her plan, which is to finally take control of the surface dwellers and live life freely. This is seen as a rebellion because instead of just going up and replacing Adelaide, Red gets all of the other tethered people to go up as well. I feel like I should explain this now. The tethered people were part of a failed government experiment in order to control the surface population. Again, the government abandoned this project and just left all these people underground. I have no idea what that means, but maybe you do. I don't know. Adelaide and Red fight, but eventually Adelaide kills Red with the fire poker from earlier and rescues Jason. And back on the surface, they are finally reunited with Gabe and Zora. One big happy family. We are shown a flashback of the night Adelaide met Red for the first time back in the mirror maze. We see that Red knocks out Adelaide and switches places with her. Plot twist, am I right? The Adelaide that we've been watching this entire movie, the one that we've been fighting for and cheering on, was actually Red. And the Red that we've been watching was the real Adelaide trying to get revenge. Wow. What? This is something that Jason seems to realize as they are driving off, because in the final scene of the movie, we see him kind of placing these puzzle pieces together. This movie was interesting, to say the least, and I'm going to be honest, I don't understand the point of everything that happened. I don't understand why the government started this experiment in the first place, and why they gave up on it and just left all these people underground. I also don't understand why the tether didn't just leave, because obviously the government doesn't care about them anymore. Also, why did the tethered attack their counterparts who didn't know they existed? Why didn't they go for the government instead? Also, if the real Adelaide wanted revenge, why didn't she just go up to the surface, kill Red, and take her place back? I don't know, man. I do think it was a good movie. I just think that I'm too stupid to understand. But then again, this was like the first movie that I watched, so I wasn't bored and I wasn't not paying attention. I wasn't tired. I just didn't pick up on the underlying meaning of it all, I fear. For that reason, I give it like a 5 out of 10.
My name, say my name. You acting kinda shady, ain't calling me baby. Why the sudden change?
Just like BlacKkKlansman, Candyman was not directed by Jordan Peele. It was directed by Nia DaCosta, but it was produced by him. So again, it counts. This version of the story was released in August of 2021. Apparently, it's a direct sequel to the 1992 movie, which is based off of a short story called The Forbidden. I have neither watched the 1992 movie nor read The Forbidden, but I think this movie explains the lore pretty well, so I feel like I don't need to watch or read the previous installments. We meet our main character, an artist named Anthony McCoy, played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. He lives with his partner, Brianna. They're having her brother over for the evening. And Troy, the brother, shares a spooky story, an urban legend of sorts. A woman named Helen who went on a killing spree in a place called Cabrini Green, which is located in Chicago. This is where the story takes place. It's where Anthony lives. He lives in a more gentrified version of it, though. The original Cabrini Green was demolished in the early 2000s. That's not lore specific to this movie. That's real life lore. History, I guess. Cabrini Green was, or I guess still is a real place on the north side of Chicago. It was built in 1942 and it had these iconic high-rise towers, like apartment buildings, basically. But those buildings were demolished in the early 2000s in order to gentrify the area. A little bit of Chicago history for you, but I'm not the best source of information for that because I'm from an island on the east coast of Canada. Anyway, back to the story about Helen. After her rampage, she tried to sacrifice the baby in the fire, but the people of Cabrini Green were able to save the baby, leaving Helen to burn to death. This story sparks Anthony's creativity, so he goes around Cabrini Green looking for some more inspiration, where he gets stung by a bee, which I know seems like such a small detail that doesn't matter, but trust me, it definitely does matter later on in the movie. He runs into a man named William Burke, played by the one, the only Coleman Domingo. Oh my god, I love Coleman Domingo. I don't really care about celebrities that much. I don't care about what Nicolas Cage is up to, and I don't care about what Angelina Jolie had for breakfast last week. But Coleman Domingo, I love him. This has nothing to do with this movie whatsoever, but the day that Coleman Domingo isn't the best dressed man on this planet is the day that I hope I cease to exist, because I don't want to live in a world where someone looks better than he does. If I ever wake up one day and I see an article about some kind of red carpet event and he's not awarded best dress of the night, that's how I know that we as a society are doomed. That'll be the first sign that humanity's done for. Okay, sorry for that little rant. Whoops. I need to talk about the actual movie now. William Burke tells Anthony the story of Candyman. He tells a first-hand experience, actually, from when he was a kid. He talks about a man named Sherman who had a hook for a hand. Sherman would go around and hand out candy to children. The police became suspicious of him when they found a razor blade in a piece of candy. One day when William was doing laundry, Sherman starts whistling from inside the walls and crawls out of a literal hole in the wall and offers him some candy. Being terrified of this hook-handed man crawling out of a wall, William yells, which notifies the police, who go down to the basement and beat Sherman to death. But a little while later, more razor blades show up and more candy, meaning Sherman was innocent. To be fair, he was creeping around in walls waiting for kids to give candy to, so he was a weird guy. He just wasn't a bad guy. William tells Anthony that by saying Candyman 5 times in the mirror will summon Sherman's spirit. Whoa, that was a tongue twister. And Sherman will then kill whoever dares to say his name. The story about Sherman does spark that creativity for Anthony, who creates an entire art exhibit around the legend of Candyman and displays it in Brianna's art gallery. And later that night, 2 of Brianna's coworkers are fooling around, we'll say. One of them decides to test it out and say Candyman 5 times in the mirror. Thinking it's not going to work, but Sherman shows up and kills them both. And this happens a few more times throughout the movie. We see it happen to an art critic as well as a group of high school students in their bathroom at school. Remember when I told you about the bee sting and how it would be important later? Now is later. This little bee sting is transformed from a tiny spot on his hand to basically a full arm scar at this point. Ew. And it's very quickly spreading to his entire body. He goes to a local hospital where he finds out he was born there, but his mother had told him that he was born at a different hospital. Interested in why she would lie about where he was born, Anthony goes to visit his mom, who tells him that he was the baby that Helen stole and tried to sacrifice. But she reveals that Helen didn't actually try to sacrifice him. She saved him from the fire after Candyman had tried to sacrifice him. She decided to never tell Anthony the story so he could live his life normally, but he's angry and he leaves and he goes back to Cabrini Green. Brianna, who is getting more and more worried about Anthony's mental state, and I guess physical too, because that bee sting isn't getting any better, goes to William's laundromat to either talk to him or find Anthony. But William jumps up from behind her and chloroforms her, basically kidnaps her, takes her to an abandoned church where Anthony already is. He looks awful. He's pretty much just one big scab at this point, which is gross. Here we get another flashback of William's childhood where we see that his older sister summoned Candyman and got killed. In order to change the narrative of the Candyman legend, William's goal is to have Anthony gunned down by police, in turn making Candyman an instrument of vengeance rather than a symbol of black pain and suffering. I got that directly from the IMDb plot page, and in all honesty, I don't really know what it means. In order to make him look like the real Candyman, William saws Anthony's right hand off and shoves a hook into the stump. Brianna is able to free herself from the restraints and escapes, running into the houses of Cabrini Green, where William chases her. But she ends up stabbing him to death. And Anthony shows up and just collapses into her arms. The police show up and shoot Anthony and kill him. Being the only one left alive at this crime scene, she gets arrested and is put into the back of a cop car, where the cop in the front seat is trying to convince her to say that Anthony did something to provoke the cops to shoot him. She obviously doesn't agree to that because that's not what happened. She then asks to see herself in the mirror, smart thinking, where she summons Anthony, who is now Candyman. And he takes out every single cop in sight. Brianna very quickly has one more encounter with Candyman, who has transformed into Daniel Robitaille. I don't know. The OG Candyman in the OG movie, which I've never watched, so I don't know. He tells Brianna one final thing.
Tell everyone.
I first saw this movie when it came out. I saw it in theaters, and I kid you not, the second I got home, me and my younger sibling did this. We said Candyman in the mirror, and obviously, I'm still here to tell you about it, so we know it's not based on a true story. This is genuinely one of my favorite movies. I really like the style of when the story of Helen is being told, like the kind of cutout shadow figure. It's cool. I love it. I would honestly give it a 9.5 out of 10, which may seem really high to you, but I need you to know that I'm not really a movie person. I don't have a high expectations for movies. If I like it, I'm gonna give it a higher score. Giving a movie above an 8 is fine for me. A lot of people think that scores like 8, 9, or 10 are reserved for the classics that everybody can agree on are the best movies ever made. Like 12 Angry Men, for example. That has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. You're telling me that every single person who's ever seen that movie would score it a 10 out of 10? That's not true, because I've seen that movie. That is the most boring movie I've ever watched in my entire lifetime. I'm never gonna get that hour and a half back, which is unfortunate. Sorry for that little rant, but that's all to say that if I give a movie a high number, it's just because I like it and I'm going to watch it time and time again. That's why I gave Candyman 9.5, because I've watched it probably 4 times since it came out. And I'll watch it many more times again in the future. We open with Nahum 3:6, which is a Bible verse that states, "I will cast abominable filth upon you, make you vile, and make you a spectacle." We are shown a bloody chimp named Gordy. He's wandering around like a sitcom set. We'll talk about Gordy in greater detail a little bit later. Let me introduce you to Otis Haywood Sr. and his son Otis Jr., who goes by OJ. They are working on their ranch, Haywood's Hollywood Horses, where they are, taking care of horses. While Otis Sr. is riding one of said horses, the power goes out. And then there's this screaming coming from the sky. And it basically starts raining debris down into the ranch. And a coin hits Otis Sr. in the head. I think it goes through his eye. Or OJ rushes his father to the hospital, but he doesn't make it. Apparently a coin fell from a plane and just happened to find its way through his eye and killed him. Isn't there a myth about dropping a penny off the Empire State Building? People thought it would kill you, but it would just kind of hurt if it hit you in the head. I guess I don't really know how high planes fly. Are they that much higher than the Empire State Building? I guess we know that some planes don't fly higher than the buildings in New York. Okay. 6 months after his father's death, and OJ is on the set of a commercial where one of the horses named Lucky will be used. When his sister Em shows up, she kind of gives a speech about horse safety, but she also kind of doesn't. She just talks about the first motion picture, which featured their great-great-grandfather riding a horse. She totally could have gone into better detail about horse safety protocol, because immediately the staff do something that makes Lucky react in a violent way. The ranch is having some financial troubles, so they visit Ricky Jupe Park, who was a child star in the hit sitcom Gordy's Home. In his adult life, though, he owns a Western-themed theme park. OJ and Em go to him to sell Lucky because he's bought a few horses off of them before. Em distracts Jupe by asking about his acting career. He brings them into a secret room in his office where he tells them the story of when he was on set of Gordy's Home and the chimp who played Gordy went crazy and killed a few people. After his little trauma dump, Jupe offers to buy the Haywood Ranch. This was an offer he actually gave to Otis Sr., and well, he couldn't accept it because, we saw what happened to him. Back at the ranch, OJ and M talk about how Otis Sr. promised her a horse named Jean Jacket. As they're having this conversation, she notices a different horse named Ghost, who is in the training arena. From here on out, I will say the movie is split up into chapters. I think there's 5, with the first one being titled Ghost. OJ goes out to retrieve Ghost when he notices like this bellowing voice coming from the sky, as well as some lights. Simultaneously, Ghost runs out of the arena, and OJ notices the other horses in the stables are going absolutely insane. This is when the power goes out in the house for literally 1 second, but outside OJ sees a UFO flying by, and he describes what he saw to M, who has the wonderful idea to capture it on film and become rich. The next day, they go to a store to buy some security cameras. There they meet Angel, who offers to set the cameras up at the ranch. Angel is, I don't want to say like a conspiracy theorist, but he seems to know a lot about the extraterrestrials, He even suggests that the Haywood Ranch might be in a UFO hotspot. He shows up to the ranch to set up the cameras that they had bought, and as he's setting up the cameras, he's talking about all his theories and thoughts about aliens. M shows up to the ranch with a ceramic, or it's probably plastic, but a fake horse she took from Jupe's park. She intends to use it as bait for the alien instead of using a real horse, because that's probably considered animal cruelty. Later on, Jupe shows up to the Haywoods Ranch and notices the horse, but I guess it's not really a big deal because he just wanted to invite them to an event that he is holding at his park. But the flyer with the info about the event gets lost in the wind. They set up the decoy horse, but they see that one of the real horses, Clover, has gotten loose. And in the stables, OJ comes across a few little aliens running around, to which he does start recording them with his phone, but he also ends up punching one in the face to quickly realize that they are just Jupe's children, kind of like getting revenge, I guess, for stealing their fake horse. OJ goes to find Clover when he witnesses the fake horse get sucked up into the sky, which causes Clover to run away. Angel, who is back at the electronics store, is watching the cameras from a feed on his laptop. So he calls M and tells her that the UFO is hiding in the clouds. And M then warns OJ, who hides, but Clover, unfortunately, does not make it. And also, unfortunately, they weren't able to get a picture of this alien, this UFO. Because of the power outages, some of the cameras didn't work, and then the one camera that wasn't affected, there was a bug in front of the lens. Angel arrives to the ranch once again, this time saying he thinks he knows where the UFO is hiding when it's not hungry. We see a cloud that is hovering above one of the mountains that just doesn't move at all. M decides to call a cinematographer named Antlers Holst, and she tries to convince him to join their team in capturing the UFO, or capturing a picture of the UFO, I should say, because he is known for getting the perfect shot, but Antlers declines his offer for now. In this chapter, we are shown the full story of the day when Gordy the Chimp went on a rampage, and we are shown this through Jupe's perspective because he was there. In 1998, they were filming an episode of Gordy's Home that revolved around Gordy's birthday. The set was all decked out in party decorations, including balloons. Some of these balloons started popping, which frightened poor Gordy. This is what sets off the 6-minute and 13-second rampage. I can't remember if in the movie they said he killed anybody, but on Wikipedia it said he did, so I don't know what to believe. After those 6 minutes and 13 seconds, though, Gordy chills out, and noticing Jupe hiding under the table, he slowly walks over to him and holds out his hand for a fist bump, which I guess was like a thing that they did in the show. But right as their fists are about to bump, Gordy gets shot in the head. While OJ, M, and Angel are preparing for an upcoming storm, OJ finds the flyer promoting Jupe's event, the Star Lasso Experience. OJ realizes that Jupe is most likely going to use Lucky to summon this alien, so he leaves to rescue the horse. But the Star Lasso Experience has already begun. Jupe is telling the audience about the UFO that he's encountered, and then the UFO shows up much earlier than expected. So Jupe reveals a glass box containing Lucky, who was supposed to be the food for the alien, but Lucky refuses to leave the box. So instead of just Lucky getting sucked up into the sky, the entire audience, including Jupe, are the ones who get sucked up into the sky, which would have happened anyway, but it's just funny to me that the only thing there that was supposed to be eaten was the only thing there that didn't get eaten. OJ arrives at the empty stadium where he finds Lucky, still alive, still in that glass case. The alien does make another quick appearance, but OJ is unconscious under the bleachers. He does eventually wake up though and is able to rescue Lucky. OJ starts making his way back home, but the alien is already there above the house puking up blood. Ew! OJ tries to get to the safety of his own home, but we know that the alien causes power outages, so his truck gets stuck in the driveway. The rain from the storm suddenly stops, so OJ takes a quick little peek outside and he sees the flags from the decoy horse like flying in the wind basically. So he realizes that the alien is right above him. He makes the smartest decision I've ever seen in I think probably any movie ever. He sees the danger outside and he decides to stay put where he's safe.
No.
Good job, OJ. Smart man. Gabe, take some notes, bud. The decoy horse is then spit out by the alien and pierces through OJ's window. OJ's safe because at least he's not an idiot. In the morning, the three of them are able to escape to Angel's apartment. And here, OJ tells them not to look the alien in the eyes because then they'll become a snack. We are then shown Antlers watching a broadcast about the disappearance of everyone at the Star Lasso experience. And he then decides to join OJ, M, and Angel in capturing the alien on film. When they meet up, they make a plan. They will set up a ton of like those blow-up wiggly guys. You know what I'm talking about. You always see them at like car dealerships or something. They'll do this to find out exactly where the alien is because if it's right above them, they won't be floating around because the power will be out. Antlers will use a hand-cranked film camera because that will also not be affected by the power outages. M will be back in the house watching the feed from like a computer, and then OJ will be out in the field as bait. This fifth and final chapter is called Jean Jacket. I will mention this now. They named the alien Jean Jacket, I would assume after the horse M never got. During this entire film, every time anyone said Jean Jacket, I thought they were talking about the horse because it had been previously established that that was the horse's name. But apparently, they're talking about the alien this whole time. I didn't even realize that until I read like the synopsis for this movie. I wouldn't have realized ever if I hadn't like done my research afterwards. Jean Jacket is the alien, okay? The plane is in motion, but just as they're getting started, a TMZ reporter drives onto the property trying to also capture an image of Jean Jacket. He's told to leave, he doesn't listen, not knowing that his electric motorcycle will be affected in the power outage. He continues on, and when Jean Jacket is above him, he flies off of the motorcycle because it stops so abruptly. And what do I like to say? That's just the physics of it all. He doesn't die on impact, surprisingly. OJ does try to save him, but is unable to when Jean Jacket shows up again. Antlers is able to catch this all on film, but is then obsessed with the idea of once again getting the perfect shot, which I guess in his mind would be from the inside of the alien, because he leaves the safety of the tent where he was sitting with Angel and immediately gets sucked up by Jean Jacket, obviously. Angel tries to escape but falls into a tarp and then gets wrapped in barbed wire. He does get very briefly sucked up by Jean Jacket, but is spit back out because I assume it would be uncomfortable to have a bunch of wire in your mouth. Jean Jacket starts transforming into this massive jellyfish-looking creature, which is both awesome and terrifying. M and OJ are separated, and M is able to escape to Jupe's Park on the TMZ reporter's bike, while OJ stays back at the ranch. At Jupe's Park, M untangles this massive balloon mascot of Jupe and makes her way over to an attraction called the Winkin' Well, which is basically like a Polaroid camera at the bottom of a well, which is a hand-cranked camera as well. She's able to snap a picture of Jean Jacket as it's eating the balloon, and just then it pops inside of Jean Jacket, killing it. As M is sitting there taking everything in, she sees OJ in the distance riding towards her on Lucky. And that's the end of the movie. The reason that I like this movie more than the critically acclaimed Get Out is because I genuinely just like the cast more. And I know that Daniel Kaluuya is in both of these movies, but I'd rather watch him as Otis than as Chris, you know? Keke Palmer, also a highlight. She lights up the screen anytime she's on it. I also absolutely love Angel. He might be my favorite character in this whole movie. He's just such a good, addition to the team, you know? And we finally have Steven Yeun, who is cool. I've only ever seen him in one thing, and that one thing was The Walking Dead. And the only episode that I've ever watched in its entirety of The Walking Dead was the infamous episode in season 7, where Glenn, gets his head bashed in by Negan.
Back to it.
So in both things that I've seen Steven Yeun in, he's died. Cool. It's so interesting because I thought his character, Jupe, was going to be the bad guy of the film, but we didn't really have a human antagonist. I mean, he did buy horses off of OJ to feed to Jean Jacket, but he, didn't harm anyone, at least not intentionally. He did get a whole audience sucked up by an alien, but that's besides the point. I feel like a lot of times in movies like this, there's some human party that is evil, you know what I mean? In this movie, we didn't really have that, because even though OJ and Jupe weren't necessarily working together, they also weren't working against each other, you know what I mean? I'm not usually a fan of movies about space. I'm not big into science fiction, really. I surprisingly loved this movie. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. This movie was written, directed, and starred in by Dev Patel, but again, it was produced by Jordan Peele's production company, Monkey Paw Productions, which is why I'm talking about it today. As much as I love a Dev Patel moment, this movie is not for me. I'm not going to go into super detailed detail about this movie because, oh my god, it was boring, and I don't want to bore you. I'll tell you the main plot points, but that's all you're getting. We meet the main character. His name is Kid. This grown adult man goes by Kid. Okay. We find out that his mom was killed by police in a raid of their village. His plan is to get revenge on the officer, a guy named Rana Singh, as well as the guy who ordered the officer to kill her, a religious guru named Baba Shakti. We learn that he's a fighter who wears a monkey mask, so I guess that's where the title comes from. Well, actually, no, that's not true. This story is based on the Hindu god Hanuman, who's a monkey man, which is probably why it's titled that. We are told this story twice during the movie, once in the opening scene, being told by his mother, and then once in the flashback scene of the night his mother dies. The kid gets a job as a cleaner at a brothel. He's then promoted to serve on the VIP floor. He trains a stray dog to bring him a gun so that one night when Rana Singh is in the club, he can kill him. So, Kid spikes the coke with bleach, causing Rana to rush to the bathroom with a nosebleed. There, Kid confronts him and tries to kill him, but is unsuccessful. Kid runs away from the scene, gets shot, and falls into a river, but he is saved by Alpha, who brings him to a temple full of trans people. It was explained earlier in the movie that trans people were being targeted by the government, so I guess this specific group led to safety in a temple in the woods somewhere. At this temple, Kid trains like crazy in order to, overpower Rana and Baba Shakti. That's exactly what happens. Back at the brothel or bar, whatever, he used to work at, he reconfronts Rana Singh and is able to kill him. Kid then finds his way up to this sanctuary where Baba Shakti is and kills him as well. That's basically the gist of the movie. The biggest thing that annoyed me about this movie was the overall lack of monkey. This entire movie is building up to this awesome fight scene. He's training and getting better and better by the day. And the second this guy hears that this boss fight is about to happen, tell me why he takes the monkey mask off, throws it to the side in an alleyway before he even gets into the building.
Hey, smartass.
Okay, cool. So now I'm just watching this man fight. Just man, no monkey. Just a regular guy fighting this older regular guy. Which is the plot of every movie ever. This movie, for some reason, also felt really slow. It's only 2 hours, but my god, did it feel like I wasted a day watching this film. Also, there were too many montages. I actually can't remember if there were that many, but it felt like there was one every 5 minutes, which I understand is to show the passage of time, but oh my god, how much time has passed, dude? The highlight of this movie for me was the JID song in one of the first scenes, but I mean, I could listen to 151 Rum anytime I want to, and I do. JID is my favorite rapper, and 151 Rum isn't confined to just this movie. So I'm not gonna just watch it to hear JID, you know what I mean? I'll just open Spotify for that. I saw this movie when it came out in 2024, and I don't remember disliking it. I definitely didn't walk away loving it. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. I think I give it like a 4 out of 10 because I'm probably never gonna rewatch it for fun. But if I had to choose between this and like 12 Angry Men, I'm choosing this in a heartbeat. At least I get to look at Dev Patel.
Hot damn, cause I'm H-I-M, cause I'm H-I-M. Hot damn, cause I'm H-I-M, cause I'm H-I-M.
This is the final movie of the day. I will say, I know absolutely nothing about American football, so going into this movie, I was a little bit worried that I wouldn't understand what was happening. Also, the version of this movie that I watched was quite possibly the worst quality of anything I've ever watched in my entire life, for a certain reason. So that worried me as well, because I didn't know if I'd be able to see everything properly. This movie was directed by Justin Tipping, but again, was produced by Jordan Peele. I know I kind of joked around about this movie in the intro of the video, but by no means did it do terribly. I mean, it also didn't do great, but it made $13 million opening weekend, which is half of the budget of 27 mil. Again, not great, but it's not the worst ratio of a box office release that I've ever seen. This film stars Marlon Wayans, who plays Isaiah White, Tyreek Withers, who plays Cameron Cade, and Julia Fox, who plays Elsie White. They are just the main characters, and obviously there are other people in this movie. You know what? I don't need to explain how cast rankings work. You should know that by now. We open with young Cameron Cade watching his favorite footballer, Isaiah White, a quarterback for the San Antonio Saviors. During this game, we see Isaiah get really badly injured, like it could be possibly a career-ending type of injury. Years later, we see Cam, who is now a quarterback himself, training to be scouted by the NFL. While he's out practicing late one night, he gets attacked by someone in a goat costume. He gets hit over the head and probably has some kind of TBI now, I don't know. If you can't really take a little bonk to the noggin, is American football really the best sport for you? I would think not. Cam is later told that Isaiah White is thinking about retiring, but before he does, he wants to train Cam to become the next big quarterback. He accepts his offer and is taken to the middle of the desert where he drives past a group of crazy fans, including a woman named Marjorie. Inside, Cam finally meets Isaiah, who tells him this training camp that is supposed to be a week long is solely focused on football, but also let loose and have fun with it. We then see the events of each day split up into chapters, like what we saw in Nope. Super chill day. It starts off with some basic warm-ups and then a physical where Cam meets Isaiah's doctor, Marco. Later in the day, he also meets Elsie, who's Isaiah's wife. As Cam is in an ice bath, Isaiah is getting like his blood drawn into like an IV bag, I guess. And he says he's saving up for a rainy day, which is weird. Marco will then inject the blood into Cam to give him energy, I guess.
Move your ass!
Isaiah and Cam go out for a run in the desert, but Cam throws up and then passes out. He also has a hallucination of this creature mascot thing walking towards him with a pickaxe, which is not scary at all. Then they go back in and start practicing drills with a bit of a twist. One of the guys he's practicing with is told to stand in front of like one of those ball launchers that go at like insane speeds. Until Cam has perfected this specific routine, this poor guy will constantly have footballs launched at his face. Cam does complete this task, and the other guy is fine. Like, he walks away. So, like, I guess that's a good sign? I don't know.
Keep that ball high and tight. This light work, fellas.
As Cam is practicing, Isaiah is unhappy with the outcome and starts yelling in Cam's face. This actually seems to work and gets Cam pumped up. So much so that he headbutts another player, knocking him out. That's now 2 people he's almost killed in a 3-day span. Then goes to call his mom to wish her happy birthday. He's not supposed to be contacting the outside world. In fact, when he got to Isaiah's house, he was forced to hand over his phone. Marco catches him on the phone, but instead of getting angry or telling Isaiah, he warns Cam to not distance himself from his loved ones and to make sure that football doesn't become his main or only priority. Cam and Isaiah meet up in the sauna later, and Isaiah opens up about missing the game and how he wishes he could go back. Isaiah then leaves, and the group of crazy fans that I mentioned earlier break into the sauna, and Marjorie tries to kill Cam, but she is killed by Isaiah before she can get to Cam. Obviously, scared for his life at this point, Cam wants to get out of there. But before he can leave, Elsie stops him in the hallway and invites him to a party, to which he accepts the invite. This day consists of shooting rifles as, I guess, like target practice of sorts, but like when you want to like throw the balls at targets rather than shooting a gun. That's the two most American things I've ever heard. American football and shooting guns. Yeah, guys. Cam talks about how scary it was that he almost killed Marjorie. Isaiah responds by saying killers need to be remorseless, and then props up what looks like a human body dressed as a mascot as Cam's next target. Okay.
Swaggiano, what up, bro? Yeah, tiptoe, yeah, ball like this.
Elsie invites Cam to another party where he is supposed to meet the owner of the San Antonio Saviors football team. As he's walking in, Cam passes by Marco, who warns him once again to run. Elsie notices this, which is not good for Marco. We later are shown his severed then a silver platter. We see Cam drink some kind of red liquid, which apparently I've heard online is blood. I don't know. But then he passes out. Cam wakes up on a bed of ice with like an IV drip of Isaiah's blood going into him. So he crawls around and finds one of Marco's syringes that is labeled run. Another warning from Marco, and this time he takes it and he does try to run. But he's met by Isaiah, who reveals the true intentions of this training process. The team that he was going to be a part of, the Saviors, has been performing rituals where the newcomer, so Cam in this case, drinks the blood of his mentor, so Isaiah, in order to gain his abilities to become the greatest quarterback. They start fighting to see who is really worthy of being the quarterback, whether it's Isaiah, who still wants to play the game, or Cam to take his place. But they get into a physical altercation of sorts. Cam is able to overpower Isaiah and kills him with a football helmet. Cam then walks out onto a field where he sees the owner of the Saviors, some cheerleaders, his manager, and Elsie. They're sitting there waiting for him to basically sign a contract, like a deal with the devil, pretty much. Cam decides not to sign this and he walks away. That's the end of the movie. No, I'm just kidding. He does decide not to sign the contract, but he needs to kill everyone there because if not, they're going to kill him and then kill his family. Cam is almost killed by the goat mascot, but he's able to steal its weapon and kill it instead. Elsie then dies when she falls onto a dagger. Cam kills everyone except for his manager, who is dragged by the devil, I guess, or some kind of supernatural force into the middle of a pentagram where he explodes. So at least it was quick. And then Cam does walk away smiling. That, my friends, is the end of the final movie. Listen, I love a Wayans brother as much as the next guy. I'm gonna regret saying this probably. My favorite movie of all time is White Chicks. I know it sounds like I'm saying that as a joke, but I need you to understand that I'm 100% genuinely serious when I say that I love that movie. I watch it probably 4 times a year, at least. There is no other movie in my life that I've seen more than White Chicks, which is unfortunate, but also I don't really care because I love that movie. It's the movie that brings me the most joy, so why wouldn't I watch it? You know what I mean? Anyway, as someone who has absolutely zero clue about American football and its rules and how it's played and anything about it actually, I surprisingly really enjoyed this movie. I will probably end up watching it again when I can find a better copy of it so I can get the full picture, the full vibe of it all. This movie also has a really good soundtrack that features some of my favorite artists, including Gene Dawson, Denzel Curry, Mavi's in it too, Larry June. Some pretty good features are on this soundtrack. I think my score for this movie is like a 6.5 out of 10, which is, I think, higher than what people are giving it online. But again, I'm not super into movies. If I like the movie, I'm just going to score it. You know what I mean? As I said, I don't need to talk about that again. But I'd watch it again. With my final score given, I can now give you my personal ranking of Jordan Peele movies. At the bottom of the list, with a 4 out of 10, we have Monkey Man, followed by Us with a 5 out of 10. And it's him with a surprisingly high score of 6.5. Next is Get Out with 7. In third place is BlacKkKlansman with an 8. Second, we have Nope with a 9. My favorite Jordan Peele movie, one of my favorite movies of all time, is of course Candyman with a 9.5 out of 10. Anyway, leave a like, leave a comment, tell me what directors or producers I should do this for next. I was thinking Wes Anderson because I already love the style of a Wes Anderson movie. I was also thinking like Ryan Coogler would be fun. I was also thinking Judd Apatow, but he has like 40 movies, so that would be a bit difficult. I feel like I've been needing to get more into movies recently because as I said, I've not really been into them. And this year has been so boring for movies anyway. But I also have a lot of free time on my hands and I have nothing else to do. So what better to do with it than watch movies? Anyway, leave a like, leave a comment, hit that subscribe button. Bye for now, guys.